Welcome back, basketball fans. NCAA March Madness is coming to a close. Yesterday, we had the girls' Final Four. Obviously, South Carolina got by North Carolina State, and we saw a great game. The two stars did not rise up and take over like we were hoping, but nonetheless, it was a very competitive game, back and forth between UConn's women's team and Iowa, led by Caitlin Clark. So the finals are going to be South Carolina versus Iowa. These two teams met up last year. Last year, Iowa beat South Carolina in the March Madness tournament to give them their first loss of the season. This year, could we have deja vu? South Carolina is undefeated once again, and Iowa is there to potentially give them their or take away their O. So we'll find out what happens there. We'll talk about that leading forward in this video. We also had today the Final Four between UConn's men, and they came through stellarly. First half, very competitive, but ended up pulling away in the second half, winning by, I think, close to 20 points, maybe a little more. And then Purdue's big man was able to beat North Carolina State's big man on the inside, leading Purdue to the finals. So I know two people in my school, my office, are very happy because they have a potential winner in their bracket. So whoever ends up winning this Final Four will take the grand prize of 700 NT, I think it is. But yeah, so let's break this down today. Let's talk about what's going on in boxing. Hold on one second and just let me open something so we can see. There we go. Okay. So March Madness, men's and women's Final Four is upon us. The four teams remaining: Purdue men's team, UConn's men's team, Iowa women's team, and South Carolina's women's team. Great matchups. So this is kind of working out perfect. Obviously, Purdue and UConn were considered two of the best teams all year in the NCAA. UConn has been pretty dominant throughout the season, only really a couple hiccups here or there. One loss to Marquette that was pretty substantial. Whereas Purdue, people were still a little shell-shocked after their early exit from last year's March Madness tournament. So people didn't have a lot of faith in them, even though obviously another year older, another year of experience under the belt. Their guards are both a little more experienced than they were last year as freshmen. And they've done exactly what people were hoping they would do: get to the finals, where it's going to be big man versus big man. Canadians Zach Edey, 7'4", 7'3", is going to be running into UConn's big man, which should be a great matchup between the two of them. This is the lineup for Purdue. Purdue obviously has really looked good. They're two great guards, Lawyer and Smith. Last year, great shooters. Smith, a very good lead guard, good control, able to feed the post very well. Lawyer, a great marksman from the outside. But it's the rest of their team that's really going to help them beat UConn in this tournament. And the other players have really been contributing very well in this tournament, getting more help on the inside, a lot of help off the bench. And these players have shown that they're ready to step up, and they have stepped up for this whole tournament, which is why Purdue is in the finals for this tournament. And if they are able to continue to contribute the way they have so far, then there's a good chance that Purdue might be able to upset the apple cart, throw a wrench into the plans of most pundits who are predicting UConn to repeat. And a lot of people picked UConn at the beginning of the tournament, and they've done nothing but live up to expectations so far. UConn's own big man, Klingen, had a very good game today. I think 18 points and 4 block shots. Obviously, he's a beast inside, very long. It's going to be a good matchup between these two guys. Neither of them are very fleet of foot or athletic. Both of them dominate with their size advantage on the inside, their ability to get into the low post and score in the low post. Klingen's a bit better defensively. He's got a little bit more lateral movement, and because of that, he's able to contribute and close down the lane a lot more than Zach Edey, who, while he's big and long, is a little bit lumbersome. He's a little more like a Yao Ming. And if he can translate his game to the NBA like Yao Ming, he will have a very successful career. But he definitely needs to become a little more agile, especially just moving side to side to help close down the lane and give defensive help to his other players, his guards and forwards. It should be a very good matchup. I'm very interested to see how Klingen's going to deal with Edey. Edey's very big, thick. He's over 300 pounds. He's going to have quite a bit of weight advantage over Klingen, which means that I think he's going to be able to still dominate the low post with his offense. It'll be interesting to see how effective Klingen is with his. Both of these players, to really be successful in the NBA, they're going to have to work on their face-up game, because high screen and roll, going up high, passing, pick and rolls, this is really where the bread and butter of the NBA is. And if they're not able to just hit a free throw jump shot, or like a joker, a three-pointer, it's going to limit their effectiveness for sure in the league. But in this tournament, neither of them we can expect to be shooting too many three-pointers, even though they might get Klingen to move on the outside to open up the lane a little more. Their team has been sensational. Today, Stephen Castle, who was probably their highest All-American high school player, he had the best game so far I've seen this year from him. He's a guy that was considered a lottery pick. He got a lot of attention coming out of high school. But now in his second year in college, he's been hot and cold, a little ineffective. His jump shot looks a little, inconsistent. Well, he has a good handle. He doesn't really try to penetrate and push as much as he could. Obviously, he's playing much more of a controlled team style of play. UConn's a very good all-around team, so I'm sure the coach Hurley doesn't want him to force anything. They just keep the ball moving and keep the ball rolling. But today he was much more aggressive. He was hitting his outside shot, and I think because of that, he helped UConn really stay in the game in the first half. And then Klingen and the rest of the team, I can't remember the other player on the team, the Cabalan, however you say his name, like a 6'7" guy, who was hitting some deep threes today late in the game, which definitely gave them a lot of breathing space moving into the second half of that game. As far as who I expect to win, it's a great matchup. Guards against guards. Newton, obviously, my name's Newton, his name's Newton. So I got a little bit of a support for him because, obviously we're family members. So I hope he does well. I think a lot of it's going to be taken out of the hands of the key players. And a lot of it's going to be based on the support players, the players off the bench, the players who've really been coming off the bench and giving them the support they need. We see that with Solomon, who comes off the bench and replaces Klingen. And obviously tomorrow he's going to be, or 2 days from now, whenever the game is, he's going to be an integral part of UConn's team, because Klingen is going to probably have some foul issues playing Zach Edey. He's also just going to get tired out and need a rest. And Solomon is their next big man off the bench. He's a lot more versatile, a lot more athletic, but he's also shorter and carrying a lot less weight. So it's going to be really hard for him to man up with Zach Edey in the key. So a lot of it's going to depend on what these bench players do and what they contribute. But if I was to make a prediction, and I'm going out on a limb, I'm leaning towards Purdue to win. I think Purdue has really been playing well. Gillis off the bench. There's another player, number 24, who's looked really good. Pretty tall, about 6'7", 6'8", very versatile, athletic, takes the ball to the hole aggressively, plays tough defense. They also have, I can't read this because it's too small for my eyes. So if you can read it, you can check it out yourself. But here, let me do this. Your eyes are old when you need to take a picture of a picture so you can read it. Yes. Obviously for UConn, you got Tristan Newton, Castle coming off the bench, Hassan, Diarra, who's been a really important guard coming off the bench. He is the third guard for their team. Alex Caraban, that's who I was talking about, who has been pretty inconsistent offensively this year, but he really picked it up the second half of the game today. Cam Spencer, who's their guard. I think the good thing Cam Spencer is going to have advantages over Smith is he's much bigger, taller, and more thick and physical. So he's going to be able to probably take him into the key and shoot over him and be physical with him. For Smith from Purdue, he's going to rely on using picks, moving, and making sure that he can use his speed and agility to get to open spots on the floor, but also to keep the ball moving and put his other players in good position. And of course, Samson Johnson, who is the other big man I was talking about. But as far as Purdue, I thought I still had these pictures. Wait on a second. Do I? Or did I erase them? Here we go. So off the bench, of course, there's Zach Edey. Who's the other guys that I thought have been contributing very well? There you go. Mason Gillis, 6'6". He was their conference's sixth man of the year. You also have Lawyer, the starter, the good shooting guard. Defensively, he's not the toughest guy. He needs to definitely stay around and become a lot stronger, hit the gym. Brandon Smith, also a very good guard. Both of them are lights out shooters. So you can't give them any space at all. And then the big man that I think has really been the difference in this tournament is Trey Kaufman-Renn. He is the other big man, 6'9", that really helps them a lot. He takes a lot of pressure off of Zach Edey on the inside. But at the same time, when Zach Edey sits to take a breath, then he's able to do very well in the inside, especially without Zach Edey's big body getting in the way in the key. He's got a lot more room to be versatile. And he's been scoring well, playing tough defense, rebounding. He's really been, I think, kind of the bright spot for Purdue Boilermakers in this tournament. And I definitely think it's going to be important for him to have a big game against UConn. But yeah, based on that, I do feel that Purdue is going to beat UConn. But of course, nobody would be surprised if UConn goes on to repeat and becomes a two-time NCAA champion, joining both Duke and Florida for that illustrious accomplishment. Now let's get to the women's. The women's has really been garnering the most interest actually out of the two tournaments, primarily because of Caitlin Clark. She's going to be running into All-American Camila Cordosa, who's a big girl. I think she's like 6'7" and physically thick as well. And she's been very dominant. In yesterday's semi game, she was dominant in the paint. Too much for these girls to handle. She still moves pretty well. She was getting up and down the court a lot better than her North Carolina State compatriot, who she was beating down for easy layups quite a few times throughout that game. She also has very nice hands, so she's able to score either with her left or right on the inside in the paint. And obviously the strength that South Carolina brings is length and rebounding. And that's going to be really the area that they try to dominate against Iowa. They have the much deeper bench. They also have the much taller team. And you might say the more athletic team. Most of the players, I think they said, no player plays more than 24 minutes a game in South Carolina. So they really rotate a deep bench, which means players are rested. They don't have to worry about foul trouble, which means they can play really tough defense, which is going to be necessary for tomorrow's game. Obviously, trying to stop Caitlin Clark, who UConn had a lot of success really slowing down in their game. Unbeaten South Carolina needs their bench to perform. They're full of All-American high school players, so the quality they have is unreal. Currently, I think they have 7 high school All-Americans on their roster, whereas if you look at Iowa, they have 2, Caitlin Clark and one other girl. So you can see that historically, South Carolina has been far better at getting high-level high school basketball players to go to their program. As you can tell, Ashlyn Watkins, also another stellar player for their team. She's been leading them in scoring in this tournament. And this deep bench Watkins, as well as Cordova, are going to be integral for South Carolina winning their third national title. Um, and for them, that would be fantastic. Obviously, they were favored last year, but running into Iowa in the semifinals, I think it was the semifinals, semis or Sweet 16, led to them taking an early out and missing out on the opportunity to potentially get four national championships. So we'll see if this year they're able to get revenge and do what they weren't able to do last year. And they are the betting favorites as far as the bookies are talking. Then we get to Caitlin Clark and the girl that really yesterday carried them past UConn, and that is Stokey. Stokey played great. She was all over the court, running up and down, getting up and down the court very well, leading to quite a few layups. She also had very nice touch, soft hands on the inside, rebounded well, played good straight up defense, didn't get into foul trouble like she has been throughout the tournament. And she's definitely an important part of this team. As I said, South Carolina is a much taller team, has a much deeper bench. For Stokey, who's 6'2", it's going to be a tough test going up against Cordova, who is probably 4, maybe 5 inches taller than her. And to her own regard, she's an All-American and potentially Player of the Year. So for Stokey, there's going to be a lot of pressure for her to perform, as well as the other girls coming off the bench. Because if Stokey does get in foul trouble, they don't have a lot of height. So they're going to have to really play a strong zone defense. They're going to have to really make it difficult for South Carolina to get the ball inside to their dominant big woman. For Caitlin Clark, she's going to have to continue doing what she does. Keep her head up, make her team better, help lead them to easy passes and easy scores on the going to the hole. She's going to have to move the ball, and that's the key for them. They want to play a fast pace. They want to move the ball. You can see Clark really keeps the team moving quick, and because of that, they get a lot of layups in the paint, not based on letting the team get back in defense, but hitting them early. And that's going to be key, as well as her being able to still generate and knock down those three-pointers. 2 games ago, she had 9 for 20 from three-point range, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable shooting percentage from the three-point line. Obviously, against UConn, she didn't do as well, but in the second half, she definitely stepped it up and hit some key threes when they needed it and helped lead them past a historic UConn team. Their backups are going to be important. Iowa needs all their players to really be working as a unit. Addison O'Grady, she's going to be the big woman that comes off the bench a lot of times. And obviously being 6'3", she is their tallest player, I think, and is going to be important for giving backup minutes and playing tough defense against South Carolina's tall inside players. Gabby Marshall, she ended up getting a key offensive foul yesterday, which helped lead her team to this game. And she's going to have to continue to play great defense and contribute to help move the ball. And the key for her, she's going to have to be more of a threat offensively. The more these other players are able to hit three-pointers, able to give and go, backdoor, and open up the zone and open up the court for Caitlin Clark, the better the team is going to play. And obviously, they're going to just work far better together. Ball movement, using the fact that they are not as tall, but the fact that they can play and move the ball quickly. That's going to be the key for them, right? And getting to the open spots, making the right moves, keeping their turnovers very low. And they're going to have to make sure they rebound as a team, especially against South Carolina. Defensively, they don't want to be giving up a lot of defensive rebounds to that team. So they're going to have to really make sure they swarm the hoop as a unit, boxing out, putting a body on someone, and getting physical against the much taller and longer South Carolina team. Kate Martin, she hit some key shots yesterday, which were important for their team winning. She is a leader of this team. Her coach talks about her becoming a coach in the future because that's just her mentality. They were talking about how people like her and Sydney Affletar, what they bring to the team has been very important. It's the fact that being at this point of their careers, I mean, obviously one's a senior, the other one's a junior, very experienced players, and their calmness under pressure. The fact that they don't shy away from the big shot, they don't shy away from making the big play, really helps take some of the pressure off Caitlin Clark, knowing that these girls are going to work hard. Affleter had 6 offensive rebounds in yesterday's game, which were a key. And Martin, even getting dinged in the nose early on, came back, hit a key fadeaway jump shot, which helped give them the lead in the second half of the game. And these girls are going to have to work hard to work as a unit to control this South Carolina team. Make sure they don't get too confident, that they don't get on a run, and that you make them work for everything. So who do you have winning it all? We're down to the final 2 games. Obviously, UConn, Purdue, the 2 best teams in NCAA basketball outside of Houston, who was the other third team. And then, of course, South Carolina, the undefeated Gamecocks. This is the second year in a row they were undefeated going into an Iowa game. Last year, they ended up losing to Iowa. This year, they're going to try to beat Iowa to become 3-time national champions. For Iowa and Caitlin Clark, this is history. If Caitlin Clark can do what Larry Bird wasn't able to do with his Indiana State team and lead them to their first NCAA championship, her legend is just going to grow even more, right? People are criticizing her now, saying, well, you can't really be the GOAT if you've never won a title. If they end up beating an undefeated South Carolina team for the second year in a row, become NCAA champions, her legend going into the WNBA is going to be very similar to Larry Bird when he went to Boston after, going head to head with Magic Johnson in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State versus Indiana State, a huge game, but Michigan State just had a better team, more depth, more length, and that was the difference. Bird couldn't carry the team all on his own. And this Iowa team is the same. Caitlin Clark is not going to be able to carry them on her own. She's going to need to get a contribution from the rest of these girls on the squad. It's going to be imperative for them to work as a unit and just beat South Carolina as a team like they did last year. Well, I feel Purdue is going to pull out the upset this year against UConn, thanks to my big Canadian brother on the inside. I don't feel as confident with Caitlin Clark and her Iowa team, even though I see a lot of the similarities between Purdue's unit and Iowa and how well the bench has been performing. And maybe I should lean towards them. They have the same colors. Both teams have been really progressing and doing well in the tournament as the tournament moved forward. But I'm going to have to lean towards the Gamecocks to win their 3rd NCAA title this year. So leave in the comment section below, who do you think is going to be able to pull this off, men's and women's? Leave it in the comment section. I'm excited to see what your predictions are. And as far as my coworkers, may the best player win. Thanks for watching. See you later, and enjoy what's left of your weekend.